Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics and a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Geppi.
Hello again, Knights Nation, and welcome to The Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 4. I'm your host, Rocco Geppi, and alongside me, as he is most times, is Aaron Thomas. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine, and I'm glad to be back after missing last week out in assignment.
Absolutely glad to have you back, and we'll see that the fruits of that labor here very soon in this season. This week, we actually are going to be showcasing our second in the series of Once a Night, Always a Night, as I sat down with former Knights right-handed pitcher Ronnie Jones. We're also going to debut a new segment that we're calling Fresh Faces in the Kingdom, as our intern correspondent Demetrius Anderson will be interviewing baseball student athlete Ryan Mills. Right now, a lot going on in the Kingdom, Aaron, so we're going to send it right over to this interview with Ronnie Jones here on the Kingdom Podcast. Hello, Knights Nation. Rocco Geppi here with our next installment of Once a Night, Always a Night, and we head out to the Diamond where we bring back former pitcher Ronnie Jones from the Knights baseball team. Ronnie, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Good. I'm happy to be back. It's been a while.
It has. We're happy to have you back. Ronnie was here 2018 through 2020, played on the 2019 and 2020 Knights teams. Obviously, big difference between those 2 years. So we'll go back to 2019, your freshman year, when you first arrived here in the Kingdom. That year, the team goes 24-21. They end the season as the regional runner-up, and you guys were competitive all year long. So my question for you is, this team was coming off of a World Series appearance. They went to the World Series in 2018. Was there any type of added pressure to win in that fashion again? Or did you get a sense of this is a new year, new team, new goals, etc.?
So it was kind of both because in the beginning of the year, we were actually preseason top 20 or top 25. And then a couple days later, it went away. We went down in South Carolina. We didn't perform so well. We lost all 4 games. But then we had a new team, though. Not many returning people. So I think after, that South Carolina trip, we figured out this isn't the same team as last year. Mm-hmm. We have to scrap all the goals and just bond as a team and kind of just figure out what our goal is going to be that year. Let's just probably perform the best we can. And then after that, we clicked and we went on some sort of 8 or 9 game win streak where we were winning every game, we were winning every series. And that's when I knew, okay, we're going to compete for either regional title or even maybe get back to the World Series that year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the team was fun to watch. I think, a lot of us were realistic about that year. It's very special and a very fortunate experience to be able to go to Enid, Oklahoma. But I don't think the expectations were to get back to Oklahoma. I think that was an ultimate goal. Yeah. And I think you guys did a real good job. I think, this 2019 team, much like what happened in 2016 in the district round, you guys just ran into an absolutely amazing Frederick team in that final game and for the regional championship. And, otherwise it was a good season looking back on it.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, some of my best teammates, some of my best times were on that team. I mean, I feel like every game was just an electric factory. It was so fun to watch, from, traveling and winning to winning our first home series to just seeing how the guys developed over the years, seeing where they went after that. I mean, some of the best ball players I've ever seen were on that team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Looking at your numbers, Ronnie, as we transition here, your career here at Essex, of course, like everyone in 2020, cut short due to coronavirus. Your career, 14 appearances, 1 start, just over 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. And you had in 2019, 5 appearances of 1 or more innings without giving up a run. Talk to me what you gained from your experience at Essex, not only athletically, but also talking about the academic side.
Yeah, so that's when I came back that year. So athletically, I was still in submarine. It was new to me, but Carter at the time, he had faith in me, and he just said, hey, when we put you out there, just do you, if you just have an open mind about it and just do you, don't worry about anything else. So that kind of helped me. And then it also helped me academically because I was so amped to get out there and play that I made sure my classes were first.
Mm.
I'm not the brightest student when it comes to school, but I made sure I set my time aside at home to study, to make sure I was eligible to play in the spring, like during the fall time. So, I mean, having a fun team and having a coach that trusted you at the time and doing well that season, it made it really easy in school to make it want to go back out there. So I made sure nothing stopped me academically. So that's when I had one of my better academic semesters, was that spring.
That's awesome. That's really good to talk about that kind of stuff and know that you got that and the importance of it. You know, a lot of student athletes think that once they made it at the college level, they can switch that student athlete word and make it athlete student, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way.
No, not at all.
Well, let's talk about some of the fun stuff. And you and I have talked about this before in the past on different episodes and such. 2019, your freshman year, we, finally we're at a spot with, I think it was the year before that, we were really there with our live stream, and, we're able to live stream the home games, not only before you got here, we were basically, the 2 years before that, doing them live, but in a radio broadcast style type of way. So 2018, we're running live the way we want to, and then 2019, there's a whole new dynamic to our live streams as we get to the post game interviews, and we start to pay attention to things going on in the background of those interviews. And a few weeks later, the Prince of Shenanigans is dubbed. Take us through that. Take us through what your thought process was in kind of getting that started and how it evolved.
Yeah, so funny story. That started our first home series of the year against Orange County. So we were out there at 5:30 in the morning prepping our home field because it was just terrible looking. There was mud everywhere. It was rain and mud mixed. So we were out there, all of us as a team, from 5:30, and we had a 12 o'clock original start doubleheader. We had to get it pushed back. The first game started at 1. So we were out there for, 6.5 hours just making sure our field was ready. And we had time to go back home and eat and shower, but we just said, give us 10 minutes to get changed and get a quick bite. And then I think it paid off, because then we went out and we swept Orange County, our first real win of the season. And then I was just so amped up. I just got a couple guys and said, hey, I got Kale, Eli. I just said, hey, let's go back and just do something funny. We got to make sure we remember this moment, because it was such a fun time, being there. Just we worked hard all season to get those first 2 wins, first big weekend sweep. We worked hard on the field, and it showed that our hard work paid off, and it was a big moment. That's when definitely I'm glad it was born then.
Did you have a particular post-game shenanigan that was your favorite of the ones that you guys were able to pull off?
I'd say the one where me, Tanner Lang, and Jeff Young, me and Tanner held a totem pole, and we had Jeff Young act like a dead pig, and we walked in the back like we were like tiki people. I think that was probably the funniest. It was the hardest because it was the most taxing on my shoulder, carrying another athlete like that for a good distance. But I think that was the funniest, but I don't think it got enough love as it deserved, because that was one of the more creative ones, I'd say.
What would you say? I know I have mine. What would you say was your least favorite?
I'd probably agree with you, the mummification. I think that could have went so much better. I think it could have been better executed, but I think it was kind of a snap decision. I said, hey, let's try it. And then I didn't realize how messy it'd get, how it could mess the interview.
Yeah, I think that was one of those A for the idea, but definitely a D- for the execution.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad I got the Hart's review on it, because I could have done a lot better.
All right, folks, and that was part 1 of my interview with right-handed pitcher Ronnie Jones. And Aaron, some good stuff in that first part. The one thing I do like about talking with Ronnie is, while he is probably the most charismatic and highest sense of humor of all the baseball guys that have come through here, he really will hit it on points, the way he sees it, and in a pretty articulate way. But talking about, when I asked him about, hey, was there pressure on you guys in 2019 because the team had just gone to a World Series. And he explains, look, this is JUCO. We know there's going to be some turnover. We had some returners from that team, but for the most part, we felt like it was a new team, and that eased some of the pressure. What eased a good bit of the pressure is, the team starts 0-6, losing 11 of their first 14, but then they hit their stride as we've seen in years past. They win 7 of their next 10, and then they go 11-3 down the stretch to end the regular season. So that team really began to gel and become one of its own, pretty quickly after that opening trip to the Carolinas.
Yeah, and he was really open about, I think he said something along the lines of they were in the top 25 to start the season, and they quickly fell out of that top 25. So he was very open and honest about how that kind of seemed to bring the team to closer. And, nothing like adversity to start a season, feet to the fire right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a freshman out of Parkville, Maryland, he attended Perry Hall High School, came into a Knights uniform, and his freshman year was head coach Mike Carter's final season with the Knights. Ronnie ended up going submarine, as he explained. He had never thrown from that angle, and it took some getting used to. But when you sort of look at his numbers, and majority of his numbers coming from that freshman season because of COVID in spring of 2020, career 14 appearances, 1 start, and over 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then he had more than 5 appearances where he gave up 0 runs in 1+ innings pitched. So a lot happening in that freshman season, but it looked like, no pun intended with the submarine, but it looked like he was able to right the ship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in the role that he had for the team, I can't imagine as a opposing hitter how difficult that is to kind of, if you're not used to seeing a pitcher like that. I mean, you're in the bigs, you got 4 or 5 players like that in a division, but here on this level, you probably only have a couple guys who are pitching that way. So it's probably really difficult to pick up the ball, and that 8 strikeouts per 9, that'll stand out to any coach.
That most definitely. The final piece of that segment, probably in the last 3 baseball seasons, this may be where I've gotten the most enjoyment. And if I'm being completely honest, the first time that they did this with the post-game interviews, I was actually a little annoyed because it was one of those. It was like a long day. We were trying to get the post game interviews after a doubleheader, and what I'm thinking. When you're in that administrative mode, you're like, oh man, what are they doing? And there's only so much you can say or do because we're live. It's out on the live stream, and as it started to develop, I started to watch it and I said, this actually looks like something that's going to be pretty fun. And knowing Ronnie, having worked with him throughout the season as a student athlete worker and stuff, I knew he wasn't going to do anything that would, be detrimental. But that first time was very anxious for me. And then it just grew and grew to the point where, I dubbed him the Prince of Shenanigans. Initially, he tried to fight that because he wanted to be the king of shenanigans, and I said, "You and I need to talk. I'm the king. You can be the prince."
You got to earn that king moniker. But it seemed he may have fought it at first, but I got the sense watching the interview, it's something he's certainly embraced now, and I wonder how much longer. That may be one of those nicknames he's telling everybody about. Later on, I used to be the Prince of Shenanigans. But I imagine Ronnie's acceptance and of that role had a lot to do with how close that team was and how close it became throughout the season.
It did, and it became, when we had, because we had a lot of home games that year, not in number, but when we had home games, it seemed like we had a lot of them. Like, it wasn't really, we have 2 home games now, and then in 2 weeks we have another couple. Like when we had home games, there were, blocks of home games, and it got to the point where when we were doing post-game interviews, the first thing that came to mind is, what are they going to do now? And as Ronnie said, I mean, he hit the nail right on the head. My least favorite was Cale Hines had a phenomenal game. And in the post game, they start putting stuff. They put a catcher's mask on him, started putting some other things on him, started wrapping him in different, I don't even think it was toilet paper. It was some paper, and it was a mess, and it just looked really bad. And like I said on the interview, I A for the idea. I mean, that was a cool idea, but a D- for the execution. It just did not turn out well.
Yeah, well, anyone who's been in the creative process knows that happens. So, like you said, A for effort.
So that was part one of our interview, Aaron. We're going to get in our first commercial break. We'll be back in 30 seconds with part two of my interview with Ronnie Jones as you're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt, because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
Times have changed, and I will not stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me. I will not let a limited schedule limit me.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
We are back, Rocco Geppi alongside Aaron Thomas, and you're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 4. Right now, we're going to send it back over to part 2 of my interview with Knights baseball right-handed pitcher Ronnie Jones. He was here for the 2019 and 2020 campaigns, and we'll be back to recap part 2 of this interview with Ronnie Jones. Well, moving on here, very interesting time for you, not only, the coronavirus shortened season, but also you go from head coach Mike Carter, who, kind of got a Godfather-like offer that he couldn't refuse to return back to Allegheny. That's where he played. It's where he got his coaching career started. And he was able to, leave his teaching career to work full-time and coach at Allegheny. Obviously, for many reasons, we're always going to hold a special place here in the Kingdom for him. And then your sophomore year, Coach O'Connor comes in. Talk to me about what you learned from each of them and the differences and similarities in their coaching styles.
Yeah, so Coach Carter, I'll always be thankful for him. He's the reason why I came to Essex. He's the one that gave me the offer out of high school. And, just playing under him, it was kind of like playing, like you said, under like a godfather. Like, I know he had the reputation. He was a hard-nosed coach. Like, what he said got done. And I think it's good to have that approach because people listen to you. Mm-hmm. And, he was kind of that, hey, this is what's going to be done. And then when Coach O'Connor came, Coach O'Connor also had that hard-nosed style, but he had a little more of a player side because he came from a high school. Mm-hmm. So he knows the younger players, and we had a young team last year. So he kind of knows how the younger players – and we also had Coach O'Brien come in, who's also just a player-friendly coach. He's the pitching coach. I love Coach O'Brien. He was like a family member to me. He every time I could reach out to him when it was about school and Coach O'Connor. It was either about school, family, or just anything baseball. They were all of them were there, and I'm definitely appreciative for Coach O'Connor, Coach O'Brien, and Coach Carter. I mean, all three of them are probably big impacts on like why I'm still playing today.
That's great. And let's talk a little bit about that. So you are currently at Salisbury University.
Yep.
So let us know how that's going, what you're studying, and how things are going on the baseball front.
It's good. It's definitely a little weird. It's my first time moving away from home, living in an apartment by myself. I'm actually with a former Essex, one of my teammates, Brian Steele. He's my roommate down there. It's weird with Corona because, you really can't do anything. Practices are kind of limited to hour and a half, 2 hours twice a week. So we're not really doing too much. Got to wear masks during practice. I'm not used to that, especially as a pitcher. It's kind of weird on the mound with the mask. But I was saying just glad to be back out there. Like, we didn't have any games, of course, this fall. A couple inter squads with the guys. But it's good being back out there, just throwing a baseball and talking baseball. Even just my old pitching shenanigans, just sitting in the outfield shagging balls while everyone just hits them. Like, it's good to be back out there in a baseball uniform, just doing like what I love to do.
And what's going on in the classroom? Have you do you have a major? Or you taking your classes? What are you taking?
So I'm studying multimedia journalism. So the main goal is to be like a sports writer one day, hopefully baseball. But it's kind of weird with classes. They're all online. I have one in person, but she always opts it to have online. So I always just do that. It's a little easier. I don't have to walk to campus and then walk all the way across campus.
Right.
But the classes are different. I'd say it's a big change from Essex. I mean, obviously, I know they're coming in their harder classes because I got all mine out the way at Essex. But it's a change. But I still keep in contact with Miss Janice. She helps me all the time through it because it's tough. I thought I was going to come in there and I thought it was going to be pretty easy, to be honest. But I had a rude awakening, so I definitely had to make sure I had to remind myself my classes come first, not baseball. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, Janice Alonso, she is currently and was Ronnie's academic advisor for the baseball team. So shout out to her, obviously doing her best to help everybody out on that baseball team. Ronnie, final question here before we let you go. And we're asking all of our former student athletes in this once a night, always a night segment. Give me your top 3 moments from your time at CCBC Essex.
Okay, so number 1 would obviously be my first collegiate appearance in South Carolina when I first went. I had a scoreless inning, and it was relieving to me just knowing I actually went out there. My hard work, 'cause I had appendix surgery in that fall, so I was working back. Couldn't even practice half that fall. So my first collegiate appearance definitely was probably, I'd say, in my top 3 moments. And then second would probably be the North Carolina trip this past spring, because that team we had this year, it sucks we got cut short because we had something special. I mean, we've bonded like no other team before. I mean, everybody on the team loved each other. We had a young team, a grit team. We didn't let anything go, and we battled every game. And then my third and final favorite moment would probably be our last game of the season, which was Catonsville, when we came back and Luke Carr hit a pinch hit 3-run home run to put us up, where we swept Catonsville for the year. Because, Catonsville's our rival. So we always want to beat them. They're a good team. They're always going to give us – it's always going to be a couple-run game. And then we came down. I had a bad inning. I had a bad outing, I should say. So I was a little discouraged. But then my guys had my back. We came back. We rallied. Luke Carr pinched it off the bench, 3-run bomb. And then it kind of just excited us. And then we won. I think it was a 1-run game, 1 or 2-run game we won. So that's probably easily in my top 3 moments at Essex.
Yeah, Coach O'Connor likes to joke, to this day that – he's undefeated in Maryland JUCO and Region 20 play. So, those 2 wins against Catonsville still looming and meaning a lot.
Oh, yeah, I would. I mean, they're a good team. So,
absolutely.
It's a shame we got cut short.
Absolutely. Well, Ronnie, you listen, we appreciate it. You're always welcome on the show. Stop by anytime, and to have you on this today to go through this, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It feels good to be back.
You're welcome. There you go, folks. Ronnie Jones, the Prince of Shenanigans, here on another segment of Once a Night, Always a Night. We're going to hit a quick break, and when we return, we'll have more of the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Times have changed, and I will not stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me. I will not let a limited schedule limit me.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt. Because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
We are back, folks. Thanks for sticking around. Season 2, episode number 4 of the Kingdom Podcast. And that was part 2 of my interview with former Knights right-handed pitcher Ronnie Jones. Thanks to him for joining me. Really appreciate it and really had a fun time catching up with him. Aaron, in this second part, we start with talking about the coaches. We talk about how there's a lot of turnover in JUCO, and the head coaching position here at CCBC Essex had been one of stability on the diamond. We had George Henderson lead this team for decades, and then Mark Palmerino comes in for 4 or 5 seasons. But then for the next 9 seasons, it's Mike Carter. He gets an offer that, we've talked about on this program before. He just couldn't pass up. And we wish him well, except for when we're fighting them in the standings and playing them on the field. But for Ronnie, I thought it was very interesting how he differentiated his relationships with each one of the coaches.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting as well, and also showed a great sign of maturity. He understood that that's the nature of this level.
Mm-hmm.
and there is going to be turnover, not just at the student athlete level, but also at the coaching level. And it wasn't surprising, to me at least, what he said about the new coaching staff, because we've talked to the coaching staff before, and we know what kind of emphasis they put on pitching from the top. So
Mm-hmm.
to hear Ronnie talk about that as a pitcher, that was not surprising at all.
Yeah, it's truly been amazing, and I think each one of those coaches brings something good and unique to the table. Like I've said before, that we're always going to have a special place in the kingdom for Mike Carter. Me personally, I'm always going to have a special place because back in 2016, when they won that first regional title since '92, he hit some rough patches where some of his coaches weren't available at certain times. And so he brought me into the fold. I ended up coaching 9 games with him at first base that season. And you don't realize how much you miss the game until you're back between the lines. And that was really really awesome and really something that I'll treasure for a long time. Then in steps Coach O'Connor. And right away, I have a great connection with him because as we're starting to get into the second level of our maturation with the technology and live streaming and everything, we hire a head coach who has his own audio-visual company, All In Productions, and I'm on cloud 9. He comes in and he's like, "Hey, I got a mixer. Do you want this? And hey, maybe try doing this." And then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I love it." And to hear Ronnie, talk about what he got from each one of those coaches, and I think you hit it on the head. In a lot of ways, it's funny because Ronnie is the Prince of Shenanigans, but he's more mature than his age really says.
Yeah, I think when you can separate the work and the fun,
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely somebody who, because he also talked about his academics in this interview as well, and in putting school first. So the fact that he can put that work in and also still understand that it's a game and you need to have fun and you need to have that element of bonding with your teammates, that shows a whole level of maturity that for sure he's wise beyond his years, as they would say.
And I can 100% attest to that because in the fall, he was one of my student athlete workers. And let me tell you, when you have volleyball, like you've seen the table, how many
Yeah.
workers we need for volleyball. And then you have basketball, and I would need workers. And, I probably wanted him to work 3 games a week and maybe he could get 1 game. But every time his reasoning was, I have homework to do. I have this paper to do. I have to focus on this for this class. And what do you do when you're an athletic administrator and somebody tells you that? You don't tell them you don't tell them you better get your butt here. You say, "Hey, have at it. And if you need to be the one out there flipping the flag for volleyball, then you go flip the flag."
We'll find somebody.
So he transfers on to Salisbury, which I think is a really good place for him. Like he said, he's never been away from home. And I think that's a place, much like Frostburg, where you're just far enough away, but you're still close enough to home. And that's what happened. I mean, the day that we did this interview, he was actually at his home. He was back home for the weekend in Parkville. And, he's going after a multimedia journalism degree. And obviously, with my background, I told him anything he needs. I could see him being a quality sports writer and possibly getting into sports broadcasting, especially on the baseball side of things.
Certainly has a personality to grab your attention and hold on to it, which is a big part of that job, as we both know. And another thing about him going to Salisbury, pretty good program too.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
pretty good
great
program.
And then finally, he gives us his top 3, and his first one was his first collegiate appearance in South Carolina, which was a scoreless outing. His second one was the 2020 trip to North Carolina, which I thought was good because, he talks about they went 1-3, but it was a special trip because they learned how to bond as a team. And to be honest, when you're a baseball team here on the Atlantic Northeast coast, whatever you want to call where Maryland is stationed, and we have schools going down south, whether it's Carolinas or Florida, to play these early games, you're looking for 2 things. You're looking for games to play in February, and you're looking to see what your team is made of. And I think that's what the biggest disappointment was for this team, is that they got a glimpse of how special they could be, and then COVID took it away from them.
Yeah, and he talked about just how close that team was and how everybody got along with everybody. So there's elements of that season that I'm sure he'll never forget, and there's also elements of that season where it's always going to be the what if.
Yeah, most definitely. And his final memory was again, we see the maturity and the non-ego of Ronnie Jones. His third memory was actually their comeback win versus their rival Catonsville last season, where Luke Carr comes in, hits a pinch hit, 3-run homer. The Knights win that game from behind 12-11. And Ronnie actually had a horrific appearance. No innings registered. He gave up 2 earned runs on 1 hit. And that's his third memory because, again, he said, I just saw how my teammates had my back. I saw the camaraderie, and those are the special moments.
Yeah, absolutely a special moment. I wonder how much of his outing contributed to that being a great memory, because you have an outing like that. Now you're a pitcher, that's going to happen. You can't always. Garrett Cole is a great line. Is sometimes you got to stand on the mound, take a deep breath, and say it's going to be okay, even though when it's not going to be. So that's pitching. But you get back in that dugout. He has the faith in his teammates that he knows he can pick them up. And then once it happens, I can't imagine that. It's got to be an awesome moment. The only thing is I would like to hear a follow-up with Ronnie about what his favorite baseball memory in general is. Got being a guy who's from Parkville, a little bit younger than me, not that many great memories with the Orioles. Is he an Orioles fan? What's his favorite memory? Is he not an Orioles? I don't know that. I was kind of hoping that he'd give me some of that too as well.
Well, I guarantee you, because Ronnie is very active on social media when I tag him. So I guarantee you, when he sees this episode, he'll get back to us with those answers.
All right. Well, we'll have a good follow up for that then.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to get over to another debut on the Kingdom this year. We saw a couple of weeks ago, Rebecca Plantholt debuting as a correspondent with her interview with baseball head coach Sean O'Connor. And this week we have our intern debuting in a segment that we're calling Fresh Faces in the Kingdom. He will be interviewing newcomers to CCBC Essex Athletics programs. And this week he spoke with Ryan Mills of the baseball team. Here's Demetrius Anderson with Ryan Mills.
Hi, Demetrius Anderson here from the Kingdom Podcast. And today I'm here with CCBC Essex student athlete Ryan Mills. Ryan, thanks for your time and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. So just to get right into it, drawing back from the Fresh Faces questions that we talked about prior, what is your pregame ritual?
My pregame ritual usually consists of two different rituals. If I'm pitching that day, I usually get to the field like an hour and a half before, work on a lot of static stretching, getting my legs and hips really loose, as that's really important when I pitch, getting a good leg drive.
Yeah, of course.
I like to do short toss, go to long toss, really get my arms stretched out. And I usually sometimes like to separate myself before the game, like 5 minutes before, and just go like behind the dugout or something, just collect all my thoughts and create a game plan of what I'm going to do that day.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, being a pitcher, I know there's a lot of, things that go through your mind and so forth. So you just try to calm all that down, and help your team out as much as you can. So yeah, I agree with that. So just the next question, why did you choose this CCBC specifically?
I chose CCBC Essex because Coach O'Connor. He reached out to me one day, and I didn't really know that much about the school, but I looked into it. It looked like something I might want to pursue. So I came to campus, talked to him, had a really good time there, showed me around the campus, and really felt like I could excel there. That's
good. Yeah, for me, like I just started doing an internship this semester, and same thing, like when coming into it, I didn't know any really background about CCBC Essex specifically. And, from what I've just been learning and, covering and so forth, a lot of success and achievements been going on through this specific CCBC. So definitely a good choice. All right. So next question, what is one personal sporting memory that you will never forget?
I guess the most important one for me was the first time I actually played baseball was with my dad. I was about 4 years old. Took me to my first game. It was a coach pitch, and he was pitching to me. And I just had a really good experience. And I think that's what really made me time with the sport and made me want to pursue that.
Right. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. So just going away from baseball a little bit, what is your favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? Probably The Simpsons, to be honest.
Yeah, throwback. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm very familiar with The Simpsons. very entertaining. So I know with the pandemic going on and everything still going on today, with the summer, a lot of summer activities were shut down just because of the pandemic that's going on. So what did you do this summer to occupy your free time?
I picked up a job at the Maryland State Highway Administration, and I made sure I get to the gym every day after work to make sure I didn't lose like any strength or keep working on my craft so that I could excel this year in baseball.
Was it a full-time job, part-time job?
Yeah, it was full-time. I worked
Full-time?
about 50 hours a week from
Sheesh.
8 to 5 every day.
Wow, that's a lot of dedication right there. Keeping your
Yeah.
game tight too. That's what's up. That's good. All right. So next question: what is the career path that you're interested in pursuing?
I think I want to either pursue in kinesiology or sports medicine, sports nutrition.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good field. I'm a sport management major myself right now.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely nothing but just interesting and entertaining and learning, especially with the kinesiology courses. So
yeah,
it's a good deal. So, and just to wrap this up, how many sports did you play prior to college?
Prior to college, I pretty much played everything. So probably like 5 sports: played football, wrestling, track, baseball, soccer.
Oh, yeah, very diverse. Yeah. So yeah, I know. Yeah, CCBC Essex. I know they're getting a really good. Sounds like they're getting a really good student athlete. So I know they're lucky to have you. So, and so I mean that concludes it all. So that's all we have for you, Ryan. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. For my guest Ryan Mills, I'm Demetrius Anderson. Now back to you, Rocco.
That was our intern correspondent, Demetrius Anderson, interviewing outfielder right-handed pitcher for the Knights, Ryan Mills. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. This is only a 15-second break. Aaron and I are going to come back and talk about that interview, and we're going to close out the rest of the show. Listen, we appreciate you sticking around and being here for Season 2, Episode number 4 of the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics. Hello, folks. We are back heading into the final segment on the Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 4. And Aaron, that was Demetrius Anderson, our intern this semester, interviewing Ryan Mills, outfielder, right-handed pitcher for the Knights. Special thanks to him. I got to give a shout out to Demetrius because he is the only intern this semester. And reason being is we don't have athletics going on. And I tell you, he is really doing a bang-up job because this internship has been on 100% remote internship, and he continues to amaze and do things like this, and he's the one behind the on this date recaps where we're sending out articles about games of yesteryear and things of that nature, and so kudos to him. He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would handle that, but that's very, very impressive. Good for you. Congratulations, Demetrius, and did a great job on the interview as well.
So let's talk a little bit about that interview. I mean, it was a quick one and a lot of good information. Ryan started off with talking about his pregame ritual, and I think nothing outside of the ordinary, especially when you talk about going through your pregame as a pitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. You listen to any professional pitcher talk, and they will all talk about the importance of long toss. So that was not surprising to hear that. Stretching and long toss were, I think, the first two things he mentioned.
Yes, it was. Then he goes on to talk about the reason he came to Essex was because of Coach O'Connor, and we're seeing that throughout this year. I mean, a huge roster, and kudos to Coach O'Connor. Coach O'Brien for really working this team's practices to coincide with the COVID protocols that have been put into place, because when you're basically doing your practices, kind of like men's lacrosse too, to a point, and you're doing them in shifts because you can't have your entire roster on the field working at the same time. The job that they've been able to do is phenomenal. And to hear, kids like Ryan Mills talk about, as much as they love playing baseball, as much as they love the sport, as much as they love competing, the reason he says he's here is because of Coach O'Connor.
Yeah, that was cool. And also not surprising. We talked about it in a earlier segment. Coach O'Connor and the rest of the staff, they emphasize pitching. Mills is going to play in the outfield as well, but he does seem like he is a little bit more interested on the pitching side. So we know Coach O'Connor and the rest of the coaching staff put a high emphasis on that pitching, and he believes that pitching is going to be one of the huge keys to the success of not just this team right now, but the program in general.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you ask any junior college baseball coach at any point in the season, any point in their career, and even the teams that are perennial powerhouses, you ask them what they would want more of, and it's going to be pitching every time. Aaron, so one of the probably my favorite part of the interview, he was asked about his favorite sports memory. And for an 18-year-old coming out of high school, to have the memory that he had of, it was when I was 4 years old and my dad we were playing in, I guess it's that level right above T-ball, because he said his dad was pitching to him. And that's his memory, and all the sporting events that have happened since then over the last 14 years, that's the memory he comes back to.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, and I hope his dad, when he watches this, gets the tissues ready. I hope he gives his dad a heads up that he should get the tissues ready, because I'm sure that is one of those ones that's going to hit him right there in the feels. That was pretty cute, I must say.
Heading through the rest of the interview, favorite show was The Simpsons. No surprise there. They've been around for, it feels like 40 years now, and still putting out quality programming. Worked a full-time job over the summer with the Maryland State Highway Administration. Career, he wants to get into kinesiology, sports medicine, and in high school and growing up, played a bunch of sports, played football, he wrestled, ran track, played baseball, and played soccer. So I think we could say he's pretty athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the full-time job, I mean, I think he said he worked something close to 50 hours, and he was also finding time to get to the gym. So one, we could all learn from this man. And I was very, very impressed by that as someone who's worked a couple jobs for a few years now. You're not born a hustler. You learn how to hustle yourself. And this young man at some point in his life has learned that the grind is what matters.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron, that's all the time we have for this episode. It's been fun. I appreciate you being back. Like I said, we're going to have the fruits of Aaron's labor here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. Anything you want to add about this episode, Aaron?
No, just good work by you and Demetrius. Good job by you and him on the interviews. And thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Folks, we appreciate you sticking around for another episode. This was our 32nd episode overall, so we're slowly creeping up on the half-century mark. We appreciate you coming back every week to watch us. Remember, you can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram under the handle @CCBC Essex Sports. Make sure to give us a follow on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find that keyword searching CCBC Essex Athletics. That's where you're going to see a lot of these videos. In fact, that's where you're going to see all these videos stationed there. Special thanks to our Facebook contingent. We're getting great traffic on Facebook. Keep it up, and we appreciate you. And of course, you can go to our website, ccbcessexnights.com, and check out some of these articles Demetrius and others are doing on this day, and kind of throwback Thursdays, way back Wednesdays, and so forth. Just kind of keeping content rolling there on the home of the Knights. Next week, we're going to have our next edition of Once a Night, Always a Night, where I interview a former men's soccer student athlete. We're not going to tell you who it is. I am going to give you a hint. Goldilocks. If you don't know what that means, you're going to have to tune in next week to find out. My thanks again to Ronnie Jones and Ryan Mills for being on the show. Our intern correspondent, Demetrius Anderson. For co-host Aaron Thomas, I'm Rocco Geppi. Thank you again for joining us. So long.